Hey, what's up, everybody? So here in Houston, Thursday night at about 6 p.m. at the Galleria Mall, which is on Westheimer Boulevard. For years, it's been a really great place to hang out and party. Galleria is a lot of high-end stores, Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Macy's, all those different places. It's a place that people used to go to hang out. A lot of times when stars come to town, they would go to the Galleria to make purchases and be seen. Well, either way, at 6 p.m. Thursday night, a young man whose name was Chris Walker had exited the Galleria, and he was in the parking lot of the Galleria, which is an underground parking lot. And he was robbed for his tennis shoes. He was shot 5 times and left to die in that parking lot. He was a young black man. And his culprit, they haven't caught him yet, but he's been described as a 20-something-year-old black man with a green hoodie on. Now, this story, which has really just taken over the Houston area and was just reported a few days ago, and I just found out about it this morning at my karate class. And the reason it was brought up is because Chris actually was taught by my same sensei, the same sensei that teaches my children, the same sensei that teaches my wife, that teaches my younger brother, Shotokan and Kaji Kembo karate. Chris Walker was also one of his students. And let me tell you something about this before you all start passing judgment. Chris was a great kid, great guy, college graduate. He went to Catholic school with my younger brother, private school. I think he was homeschooled all the way up through there. He has his father is a professional R&B singer. I believe his uncle owns a local radio station. And Chris was doing nothing wrong but shopping in the Galleria Mall, a place that many of us used to think was a safe place. Now, here's the problem. The problem is, because he was not killed by a police officer or some law enforcement, this is not going to get the national attention that it should. It's not going to even get attention statewide or even citywide. Because he was killed by another black man, black people for the most part are going to dismiss it. Now, I'm going to ask you all a question. Which is the bigger problem? The 800 or 900 people that are unalived by law enforcement every year who happen to be black, or the thousands and thousands of black people, specifically black men, who are unalived by other black men? Which is the bigger problem? If we just want to do the numbers, if we look at the FBI statistics and we say this number of people, which is in the thousands, are killed by black men. This number of black men are killed by black men. This number of black men are killed by police officers, with the number being killed by black men being astronomical. Which is the bigger problem? And so if we want to use our common sense, okay? If we use our common sense, clearly black men killing other black men is a bigger problem than the police unaliving black men. But we refuse to address that. Instead, what we do is, some of us try to blame the system. Now, the system traditionally has been oppressive towards people of color, women, black people in specific, poor people. But laws have been changed in the past 200-something years, and there's no more housing discrimination. There's no more employment discrimination, at least on the books. There's no more segregation. You can't keep people out of public places, public facilities. So as far as the education been integrated, you can marry who you want to marry. Hell, you can even marry a person of the same sex at this point. So it's fair to say that those systematic barriers that kept people oppressed have been recidified with laws, because that's the way you correct the system. You correct it through laws. So is that really the problem? The system? You can always sue somebody. You may not like to do it, but there's a remedy. But on the flip side, we still are killing each other as black men. So you can correct the system all you want, but how do you correct black men killing other black men? And more importantly, what's the bigger problem? The system that has provided you remedies to correct it, which still kills. You may be arrested by the police, brutalized by the police, but there's a system to correct that. But no matter what damage the police do to the black community, it's infinitesimal compared to what the damage that black people, specifically black men, do to other black men. Chris was a good guy. He was a good kid. Invariably, when I would go watch my younger brother spar and practice and do karate, Chris would be there and his parents would be there. So I know this kid. And the greater point is this: brothers, sisters, you raise great black children. They're educated, they're hardworking, they stay out of trouble, and then some thug in black skin comes along and unalives your child. Some savage who wants to blame the system for all of his ails, who thinks he's entitled to something that he didn't earn, comes along and unalives your child. This could be anybody. This could be anybody. But I'm talking specifically to black folks who try to raise their children with sense, with dignity, with pride, who put care into what they do. This young man was his mother's only child. So this woman who went almost 30 years of life having a child, the 9 months it takes to give birth to a child, now she is childless at this point. He had just turned 30 years old, so he was 29. Went out probably to buy himself some new shoes. And gets murdered by some thug in the Galleria Mall who wants to just take a shoot. Didn't just shoot him, shot him 5 times. 5 times. One black man shot another black man 5 times. Now, here's the thing. You can't run from this. Brothers and sisters, we have got to stop blaming white folks and the system and whoever else for a cultural problem that we have. To all my successful black people who try to move out to the suburbs, who try to put your kids in these private classes or homeschooling, you cannot escape it. Because when those black thugs and those criminals see your children, they see a victim. This criminal didn't do it to some white kid. He didn't do it to a Latino kid. He didn't do it to an Asian kid. He specifically targeted another black boy, another black man. So that lets you know we're not safe from them. So again, there's no escaping from it. The bigger question is, why do people think that good, hardworking, law-abiding black folks are supposed to empathize with these thugs? Look, there's recently been this case where a man who was incarcerated was beat to death by the police, by the correctional officers. And I'm not justifying that. I'm not saying that that's something that's legal or lawful should be done. I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying, what I'd like to point out is there has been an absence of outcry, especially from black men. There's no outcry. Well, I thought you blacks were totally against police brutality. Yeah, we don't like thugs, though. We don't like Pookies and Ray Rays. We don't like people who come to our community born to us and stuck to us because of the color of their skin and their perceived ethnicity as black. We don't like them in the community either. All they do is raise hell and cause mayhem. All they do is make life hard. That's all they do. And whether we're talking about Houston, Texas, Los Angeles, Oakland, Detroit, Atlanta, all the boroughs in New York, Philadelphia, Baltimore, we don't like these criminals either. And the only reason we're forced to try to take up for them is because you got folks who are willing to exploit their criminality and the consequences of their criminality to say that the system isn't fair. And maybe it's not. But what is also not fair is having all these crooks and criminals in the black community, and we have to automatically sympathize with them when they get their ass whooped by the police. And when in reality, most of us don't give a damn because we know all the mayhem that they've caused in the community. And I'm talking to the brothers right now. I'm talking to the black men who you know darn well you have nobody else to blame but the position that you in. You were the one that didn't exercise all your options. Education is free in the United States. There's absolutely no reason you shouldn't be able to get one. If you halfway want to do something for yourself in the United States, you can get a career. You have people who come to this country who don't speak English, who are dirt poor, have no exceptional talent, and no family ties, and come over here and figure out how to do some sort of labor job and get some money and take care of their family. And generation after generation, they start coming up. So I don't want to hear it. We did better as black people fresh out of slavery, when the system was really against us, when racism was at its all-time high. And I am not in any way in a position to believe this cockamamie stories about how you can't do something to come up that you need to now go out and commit crimes and murder and all these other things just so you can have money to feed your family. You don't even have a family. The truth is we have an entitlement problem. We have a victim mentality in the black community. We have people who are raised generation after generation believe they are owed something. And that translates to, if I'm owed something, I'm just going to go out and take it. And this time it happened to be one of our best, one of the young men that black people want to have. An educated young man, a man who stayed out of trouble, a man from a family, a mom and dad who loved him and took care of him, got taken out by some low-life thug who happened to be black. And there's not going to be a public outcry. Instead, we're going to find a reason to blame the white man. Instead, when they do catch this criminal, there's going to be some people saying, oh, well, he had a hard life coming up. As if that gives him a reason to go use a gun and shoot somebody 5 times just to take their tennis shoes. At what point are we as black people going to begin to speak the truth and recognize that we are our own worst enemy? At what point are we going to accept the fact that black folks kill more black folks in a year than the KKK ever killed in the years in which they were lynching us at the highest heights? At what point are we going to talk about that? The rapper Slim Thug, who's from Houston, recently said we got to stop blaming white folks for our problem. And he's fucking right. You want to know where the problem with black culture lies? Look in the mirror. Look in the goddamn mirror. That could have very well been my sons. It could have been me. It could have been a whole other slew of people who I know who are raised right with families that care about them taken out by some ignorant, low-life thug for some goddamn tennis shoes. What do I think about these criminals getting their butts whooped by the police when they're incarcerated? Goes with the territory. You wanted to play victim? There you go. You called the tune, now you got to pay the piper. You wanted to be a victim, the world didn't treat you right? Well, you know what? Now it's really not treating you right. You get what you get when you go to these penitentiaries. You get what you get when you commit crimes and you live a certain lifestyle. I'm not marching for thugs. I'm not marching for criminals, because all they do is, when you let them back out on the street, all they do is victimize other black men and black women and black children. That's all they do. Why do I have to be tied to some person who's going to turn around and unalive a good black person, a good young man who wasn't bothering anybody, who was educated, who was just walking from the shoe store to his car in a major American city? Why do I have to feel sorry for all these black men who are locked up and incarcerated for committing these violent crimes? Yeah, I understand. Sometimes brothers go to jail and they didn't do anything. I get it. Sometimes this one that got convicted of murder didn't actually commit the murder. But you know what? They were in that lifestyle. Very rarely do you just jump out the box and get a murder charge. No, you start off stealing. Well, you start off committing assault and battery and stealing and hanging with the wrong crowd and using drugs and committing other minor crimes, and it typically escalates. So by the time you get to the level where you're doing armed robberies and drug dealing and carjacking and murders, you've done a whole slew of crimes, many of which you haven't been caught for. It's a lifestyle. It's a snowball effect. Anybody who does criminology recognizes that you don't become a hardened criminal overnight. It's a process. And it's a daily choice that you make, just like you don't become a great educated person overnight. It builds on itself. You start off in kindergarten, learn your ABCs and your basic numbering systems, and you work your way up. Next thing you know, you're a PhD working at NASA somewhere, building rockets. You don't get that overnight. And just like criminology doesn't happen overnight, criminality doesn't happen overnight. But what we need to do as black people, especially black men, man, we need to stop supporting these low-life thugs. Now, I'm not talking about you brothers who've been in and you repented and you stayed out of trouble. That's not who I'm talking about. I'm talking about these low-life, no-good hooligans who are out there raising hell in the black community. I'm not marching for you. I'm not sending money to your GoFundMe account. If you run up in somebody's house or business and you get shot down like a dog, too damn bad. Oh, my baby. I don't give a damn about what your mama say. They didn't have to shoot him. You were trying to do some crimes and you got put down. That's your ass. Because the other alternative is we let these lowlifes take over the black community and we are never able to rebound. What's the point of sending your sons to get education and raising them up to be good law-abiding citizens? And then some low-life thug just comes along and treats them like an N-word and puts them in the ground as if he was nothing but a dog. What's the point? We can't separate ourselves from them, because every time black people try to move away from the lowlifes, the lowlifes end up showing up. The Galleria used to be a wonderful place to go hang out when I was a young man. 15, 20, 30 years ago, you can go over there and hang out. I remember when they were building. It was a nice place. Families could go there and eat. You had a nice restaurants and whatnot around. And now you got all these thugs and hooligans moving in around it. It's become a magnet for these lowlifes. They prey on people who they think have more than them because they've been told that they're victims. And as a victim, I have a right to take what's mine. I'm a victim, poor me. And so because I'm a victim in this great country that we live in, I'm a victim. All these opportunities, I'm still a victim because nobody's giving me anything. I don't have what he has. I'm 19 and I should have a Maserati too. But because I don't, I'm going to go kill this man and take his shoes. But think about that. This fool, this is Texas. So you kill somebody, that's a capital murder case. So you're going to get the electric chair. You might get a lethal injection. For some tennis shoes. And the fact that you killed somebody, I don't want to hear you sorry. I don't want to hear you sorry. Yeah, you know, I know people have rights and we are all innocent until proven guilty and whatnot. But if you murdered somebody, if it is shown that this person killed a man while robbing him, that's a capital murder case. You deserve what you get. Brothers, we need to start taking a hard line on this, man. It's, you know, all of this blaming white folks for the criminality, things that we do. I mean, just times. It's also about other things, other behaviors. You have children, you don't take care of your children. I love you, brothers. You know I love you. I'm an advocate for black men. I love you, brother. Take care of your children. I'm not saying you don't. The always quick to put hands on people. The quick to escalate to violence. The lack of ability to resolve a situation without violence, especially amongst each other. We have to live next to each other. How you gonna be aggressive and angry and violent towards somebody who lives next door to you? You got to see them again. It makes no sense. You need to learn how to de-escalate issues, even in the family. You got family members that can't deal with each other because of it. This is a cultural issue that we have. This is not a white problem. This is not even an American problem. This is a black American problem. We have cultural issues. We don't like each other. We don't want to be around each other. We hate each other so much. And the reason we hate each other so much is because we hate ourselves. We don't value ourselves as a people. Now, that's not across the board. Some of us love ourselves and we love our people, but for the most part, we have a culture that tells us that we are nothing, we're not good enough, and we deserve nothing. But hey, listen to our women. We got a generation of women who have been raised to hate their fathers, hate their baby fathers, hate their husbands, hate their sons. And those sons inherit that, not just a generation, about 3, 4, 5, 6 generations at this point. And those sons learn that hate. And they not only do they hate themselves because they've learned it from their mothers who spend all day talking bad about black men. So they hate themselves and they hate other men that look like them. Other black men. And you wonder why it's so easy to shoot and kill somebody that looks like you for some tennis shoes. This is a cultural problem. It's not a system problem. It's a cultural problem. And it's not one you can get away from. You can't separate yourself from them. You're going to have to deal with it. Now, the most immediate thing that we need to do is begin to take a hard line on these criminals. No sympathy. No marching. You get your ass whooped by the police and you get bodied while you out there committing crimes. Oh, well. I'm not marching for you. We need to set up an internal, an internal agenda to let other black men know we're not standing with you on your ghetto violent behavior. And that also goes for women. We're not cheering and we're not clapping for it. We're condoning it. We're saying we don't support it. And if bad things happen to you because it, cool. Let's make that unpopular. Let's make black on black crime unpopular. That I wish you would. I wish the N-word would. That attitude has to go. Because all that does is lead to escalation. More violence and more violence. And next thing you know, your son and your daughter become a victim. We got to stop blaming white folks and everybody else. If white folks wasn't here, you would blame Mexicans. If Mexicans wasn't here, you would blame Jesus. You blame the devil. Instead of just looking in the mirror and saying we have a cultural problem that needs to be dealt with, it's time for black folks to grow up. We're not children. We're not slaves. Otherwise, we're going to have good kids, good young men and good young women. No matter how hard we try, they're going to get taken out. This is Uncle D. I love y'all, man. The Blizzard King with the cold, hard truth. You ain't got to like what I say. But you know goddamn well I'm telling you the truth.